Hello everyone, welcome back to Need a Hand. Don't worry, you'll get Spider-Man videos next week. Not that a lot of you are watching my stuff. I need to turn down the air. I'm in my car right now. I just finished watching the Thunderbolts and I just got home. So it's really dark because I had to go to a later showing after work rather than skip work or class or something. But my thoughts on the movie, it's really good. Like, I was shocked how good it was. Like, the movie is a lot about mental health and understanding that you're not alone, that you have your people, that you don't have to be trapped in a void and things like that. And it does it really well. Also, fair warning, I might cry during this video. Because, yeah, the movie hits really hard. It's debatably the best Marvel movie I've watched. And that's saying something because I've seen every MCU film, all of the Fox X-Men films, and then the Sony Spider-Verse films except for Madame Web and no, I've seen Morbius, except for Madame Web and Kraven. I haven't seen those. And then I haven't seen Blade. I've seen Ghost Rider. Oh, the Punisher movies. Then there's the 1,000,000,001 TV shows. But my point is, I've seen a lot of superhero movies. This one might be the best one that I've watched. Like, I don't want to say that and regret it, but it felt a lot like Logan, where it focused more on being a good movie that happened to have superheroes in it, rather than being a superhero movie all about spectacle and things. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy the spectacle and stuff. Like, I loved Infinity War and Endgame. They're a lot about spectacle and they're great. So much fun. This movie is not a fun movie, but it is a good movie. I'm just going to dive right into each aspect of the film and give my honest review on it. So, the fighting, really well done, very well choreographed, pretty realistic for the most part. I mean, there's like 3 super soldiers, like super strong people, so it's as realistic as it can be. And it's actually less violent than other movies. Like Black Widow, The Winter Soldier, they all get pretty bloody, and like Black Widow, there's several broken bones and it's pretty gross. Heck, even like Infinity War and Endgame have like Tony getting stabbed or whatever, and it gets pretty gnarly and brutal. But this movie actually has a lot less of that than I thought would, which is surprising because Bucky, Yelena, Ghost, John Walker, Taskmaster, Red Guardian, not really so much with Bob, but all of those 6 characters were assassins. Like, we know that from the previous movies. They talk about it in this movie. So I'm like, that's weird that the most violent characters are not very violent in their own movie. I don't understand why, but I'm not going to complain. Like, yes, there is some shooting, some people do die, but it's not like they shoot them and you see a bullet wound or some blood on the floor, whatever they can get away with a PG-13 movie. It's actually pretty tame. It's like Yelena points a gun at somebody, shoots, and they fall down, and it's like, woohoo, they're dead. Like, you don't see anything. It's about as violent as Star Wars. And I'm including the old Star Wars when they shoot stormtroopers. Like, it's not very brutal at all with the violence. So if you're into gory stuff, go watch Deadpool or Daredevil. Like, those exist. You can enjoy those. Yeah, so violence, the fighting was very well done, and it's not overly graphic, which was very refreshing. Then language, it's about the same as any other MCU film, especially the later ones. There's no F-bombs, which I thought there would be considering the characters. I'm okay with that. If you're somebody that wants F-bombs in your movies, there's Daredevil, Deadpool, Logan, etc. that exists. Far as the plot goes, honestly, right off the top of my head, nothing feels overly contrived or convoluted. Like, it made sense. Like, I was okay with it. Like, the plot wasn't... Like, it didn't... I guess it had a MacGuffin, but the MacGuffin makes sense and has weaknesses, so... Take that for what you will. It's not like the Force in Star Wars, where it's like, oh yeah, this happened because the Force. I'm not going to explain how it works, but the Force did this. It actually gives some explanations and sets some things up. The story's really good. It's a lot about mental health, and they do that from the get-go. Like, there's some movies where you don't know what they're trying to do. Like Brave New World, for example. It's like, okay, are you setting up the new Avengers? Are you introducing Red Hulk? Are you doing, like, Captain America's story? Like, what's going on? And this one very much knew what it wanted to be and what it wanted to tell. So it did a really good job with that aspect. Yeah, with the story, so with Marvel, we all know that they like to connect to other movies or set things up. This one does and doesn't, if that makes sense. Like, Bucky's from as far back as the first Captain America movie. Red Guardian, Yelena are in Black Widow, and Yelena's in Hawkeye. They have those connections, but they explain them. They explain them in a way that the movie makes sense, but you don't have to know everything already. Like, Bucky even says, you know my story, you know my history. Like, I'm not going to rehash that. You know what I'm going to do. One other thing with the writing, they will set up a joke and, like, have the joke happen, and then they pay it off later. And it comes back, and it actually means something. It's perfect. It makes me so happy. The writing's really tight with that. Even little things, like somebody making a weird comment that you're like, okay, whatever. It comes back, and then it's either really funny or really impactful and really means something. The comedy is really good. It doesn't overstay its welcome. Like, Marvel has a problem with that sometimes. I'm looking at You, Love, and Thunder, where they are so focused on being funny that the weight of the moment is lost. This one doesn't have that. Yes, there are some funny jokes, and there was one part where it hits really hard emotionally, and then it's followed up by a joke. But the joke fits because of the character that does it and the circumstance around it. It's a nice release, if that makes sense. Rather than being like, okay, we had our emotional moment, now let's be funny. It's like, okay, here's our emotional moment. We know that was heavy and hard. Here's something funny to help lighten the mood. Like, it's not overly funny, overly silly. It's just a quick little thing like, okay, let's ease that tension so we can go into the next thing. And it's very masterfully done. I really enjoyed that. The characters are great. My favorites are probably Bob and Yelena. They're really the stars of the show. If you're a Bucky fan, he has his moments, but he's not focus of the movie. He's just kind of there. And I mean, it makes sense why he's there, but it's not like anything crazy. It's like, okay, Bucky is here, he's on the team, he's doing his thing, and it makes sense why he's doing his thing. If you're a big Bucky fan, you're like, oh my goodness, he's going to be like Steve Rogers. He's not. He's just not going to. Like, he still leads them, but the movie doesn't focus on him. Same with John Walker, Red Guardian, and Ghost. Like, if you're a big fan of all of those characters, like, yes, they have their moments, yes, they get to shine, but they're not the stars of the show. And Taskmaster, if you've seen the trailers, that's all I'm going to say. Like, she's not in the trailers. So I'm just going to leave that as is and let you piece together the puzzle. The marketing was phenomenal. Like, my biggest issue with Captain America Brave New World is that they showed Red Hulk. Like, every fight with Red Hulk, like, all the Red Hulk scenes are in the trailer. There's nothing saved for the theater. They don't do that with the Thunderbolts. They show enough of the Sentry and the Void in the trailers for you to know, okay, this is what they're up against, but they don't spoil anything. Like, you don't see Sentry's suit, and yes, he does wear it, and it's comic accurate, and it makes me so happy. They do things right, if that makes sense, with the marketing. Heck, there is some spoiler stuff that I'll get into in a little bit that they did a good job with the marketing. Like, I was genuinely surprised when things happened and what things happened. Okay, the CGI, for the most part, is really, really good. There are a couple scenes where it's off, specifically like fight scenes where they have to do it with CGI. It can't be practical, and you can tell it's CGI. Like, it's not glaringly bad like other things like MODOK, but it's not the best it could have been. I feel like they could have done better if they would have worked on that more. But I don't fault the artists. I fault Marvel Studios for not giving them enough time or money. Marvel Studios should have given them more money. The cinematography was great. There's some really cool shots that made me really happy, but they're more at the beginning than later on. Overall, I'd give it an A, maybe an A+. Like I said, it might be my favorite movie, and it might be the best Marvel movie. Like, it's on the same tier as like Logan, in my opinion. And you can disagree. If you disagree, fine, tell me in the comments, whatever. Leave a dislike, or leave a like if you agree, or just think my thoughts are interesting. Yeah, it's really good. I'd give it an A. Like, out of 100, it'd be a 98. And those 2 points are deducted, one for the CGI not being quite what it should be, and the main reason why I deduct that is it's shots that they've done before and have done well, and I don't understand why it looks rough. Well, I do understand. The short answer is money and time. They didn't have enough of both. And then my other main issue is it should have come earlier. We didn't need She-Hulk. We didn't need Secret Invasion. This movie should have kicked off Phase 5. That's my honest opinion. They should have done Phase 4, where it's like, oh no, the Avengers are gone. We don't know who's going to team up and take their place. And then they should have done this movie because they introduce a new team, and they could have done some interesting things in Phase 5, and then do Phase 6 with Secret Wars and everything. You can't change the past. I just wish it would have come earlier. Like, after the Black Widow movie, it would have been perfect at about that point. But that's just my thoughts. This movie is mainly for people that struggle with their mental health, and that know people that struggle with their mental health. Now, I'm of the opinion that everybody struggles, they just don't realize it. I'm also learning about psychology, so my goal is to go into therapy. Hence the name of my channel, Need a Hand. I want to share what I've learned, but unfortunately I haven't really learned anything interesting during class. But with this movie, if you struggle with your mental health, it can be triggering. Like, I had some things happen a few days ago that really put me in a bad place, and this movie almost triggered me to go back there. It didn't, but it is a hard watch. It is a heavy watch. It's not really made for families. It's not like the Avengers, where they're pretty lighthearted and just fun. Yes, violent, but most families don't care if they're showing that to their kids. But this isn't one that little kids will enjoy. It's aimed more for a more mature audience. It does talk about some very heavy topics and could be potentially triggering. Like, this is going into spoilers, so click away if you don't want to watch it or hear any spoilers, but Bob's parents were not very kind to him. They were emotionally abusive. His father was verbally and physically abusive. If you've been in those relationships, it can be triggering. And it was one of the parts that triggered me. Because what our parents tell us, even if it's just a one-off, like, oh, you're so frustrating, just because they're trying to lay out their emotions, that can stick with you for years. and cause a lot of problems down the line. And so, like, it shows that. It's about the same level as Moon Knight, if that makes sense. Other spoilers, Taskmaster dies. If you've seen the trailers, it's pretty clear. Like, there's one scene that she's actually in the movie, and it's in the trailer. And then there's another scene in the trailer where they CGI'd her in. And it's really funny watching that scene and being like, oh, that's where Taskmaster was supposed to be. But yeah, they kill off Taskmaster in like 2 minutes. I'm not even joking. And the comic nerd in me is really happy because in Black Widow they didn't do Taskmaster right. I mean, there's the obvious gender swap, and personally, I don't care as long as they get the character right, if that makes sense, or make a new character, but don't try to convince us it's the same character from before. But that's what they did in Black Widow, and so I'm like, this character is nothing like Taskmaster in the comics. And I think they recognized that and decided to kill her off, and was pretty great. It made me pretty happy from a comic point of view, because yeah, they did not do the character justice in the movies. And now, with the potential reboot, they could introduce a Taskmaster who actually behaves like the comics. Now, the costume for Taskmaster, that looks good. If they keep Taskmaster as female, I'm fine with that. Just have the personality be the same, or at least interesting, because Taskmaster is just kind of there in both Black Widow and this movie. It talks a lot about feeling alone and fighting that feeling, and that you can find your people. But if you haven't found your people, that can be triggering and pretty hard. It sets up the next few movies really well. This is the spoiler talk section, so if you're still here and you don't want to hear about the post-credit scenes, leave. But the mid-credit scene is just a joke. They pay off a joke from earlier in the film, and it's really funny. I actually really enjoyed the scene. It was great. So that's the mid-credits. Then the post-credit scene, they end up seeing the Fantastic Four's ship and talk about some problems that they set up. I'm trying really hard not to spoil, but this is the spoiler section. They're the new Avengers. That's why there's an asterisk on the name. They're not the Thunderbolts. They become the new Avengers. And Sam Wilson, Captain America, is not very happy about that, so he files a copyright claim with the name, and he and Bucky end up having a divide. They end up fighting. That's all off screen. They don't show it, but they talk about it. And then as they're talking, they're like, oh, a trans-dimensional transporter is showing up. Let's check it out. And they pull it up on the screen, and it's the Fantastic Four's spaceship. And so we now know where the Fantastic Four are headed, how that movie ends. That's also setting up Doomsday, because the Fantastic Four will be very important, and things like that. I'm pretty excited to see what they do in the future. They handle Sentry very well. People were worried it'd be like a sun's getting real low, talk no jutsu type stuff. And it is, but it isn't. It's more of, hey buddy, let's give you some therapy and help you out. Help you know you're not alone. It's handled in a very smart way that helps support the rest of the film. I was worried that Sentry would be like all powerful, which he is. But then he'd like show up in Doomsday and be defeated, and we're like, what? How do you defeat Sentry? Like, he's so powerful, how do you do that? And the answer is that Sentry is powered down, because if Sentry comes out, so does the Void. And that causes problems. So right now, Bob is just Bob. When he shows up in Doomsday, which we know he does due to that chair video, that's 8 hours long, he might not be the Sentry at that point. He might just be Bob, just vibing, doing his thing. And Doctor Doom can easily defeat Bob. But defeating the Sentry will be a lot harder. But if he stays as Bob, they could fix that. They also introduce a kill switch. Doctor Doom's smart enough to figure that out. It's a whole thing. They can fix that pretty easily. I'm not too worried. Honestly, I'm more excited about the MCU than I've been in a long time. Now, mind you, I didn't start watching Marvel movies until Infinity War came out. So, that's kind of where my fandom started with this. But I've watched every movie since then. And I've watched every movie that's come out in theaters that I could. I couldn't during like 2021, 2022 for some personal reasons. But yeah, Thunderbolts is good. I think you should watch it. Anyway, lend a hand to those who need it. Bye.